the Wrexham Lager House.
Yeah, the UK's oldest lager house, yeah. Wrexham Brewing.
Wrexham, yeah.
Let's start Wrexham. Damn near killed him.
Let's start that a little bit over.
Oh man, I didn't know it was that kind of funny. That's funny.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Body by Beer podcast. My name is Chelsea, and this is my best friend.
Hey, everybody. I'm Liz. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a pretty interesting episode for you today.
I think so.
I think so, too. Okay. It is interesting as economics can get, and I feel like considering we just had our nation's election last week, it's a fitting conversation to throw in economics after that.
In addition to the economics discussion, it actually, as no surprise, correlates in with our interview with Cody from Public Offering, who also has a financial background. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to have multiple inspirations for this this topic of this episode. So pretty excited to start intertwining these worlds together and trying to make it as boozy fun as possible.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense after cruising over to Public Offering and chatting with Cody. And not only does he have a finance background, he also has a chemistry degree. I'm pretty sure if I recall correctly. Super cool guy, great energy about him. But so the entire theme of this episode, if you didn't pick up on it, is about economics, finance.
Economics or economics?
Tomato.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk about things like what's happening in the craft beer industry as far as economics are concerned, maybe what's happened in the past and how it's shaping future outcomes of the industry. Yeah. We'll talk about fun facts about economics. Money talks.
Yeah, you really
my money
making me get creative here to fun facts the economics world.
I know. I have a typewriter you could borrow. And a really old ass calculator.
Like the big one?
I do. I have a really old calculator with the paper. You could go.
Oh, that's really old. I was thinking the one you turned over and had boobs.
Calculator.
My phone doesn't work that way. I have round numbers.
That's lame. Phones suck. So it could still be a super fun sips of wisdom. However you want to play that out.
And make it as fun as I can, y'all.
Yeah. And then we're going to get into our top 10, which is going to provide some insight and advice that we've captured along the way with these awesome conversations that we've had with owners and brewers alike.
Investors,
the whole
gambit. We've talked to people, guys. We've talked to people before.
And if you haven't figured out, like, we kind of like to talk, but hopefully not in a bad way. Hopefully you do gain something out of it, even if it is just a laugh. At our expense or not, I don't think. I think we're tough enough to handle that sort of humor. So
we got it. We can do this. So let's we just get into it with the brew news and get a rocking and a rolling and a tipping and a bowling and a sipping and a trolling and we gotta talk about our beer.
Oh yeah. So today I'm drinking from Upslope. Would love to get those guys on the show. Big fan. Having a Japanese rice lager. Yeah. It's a snowy kind of day, but I have a lot to do today, so I didn't want to go for... Here's where I'm at in my bipolarness. I'm at the lager level, which means I'm on the lower spectrum of energy. I'm not into that high-octane Imperial Bourbon barrel-aged stout today. Yeah. But what I like about this Japanese rice lager, one, it's light, it's super low on the malts, it's just slammable, crushable. It's practically bubbled water. Crispy rice flakes, and it's marvelous. So Upslope does not disappoint, so if you can get your hands on it, I definitely recommend.
Big fan of the Upslope peeps. I am drinking a beer out of an Upslope glass by Pure Quinky Dink of what I grabbed from the cupboard. I do not like this beer, and so I'm not going to say who I'm drinking because I think that's rude.
There you go. So you probably won't see her taking a lot of sips of it.
It smells great, but the color was off right when I saw it. I was like, that doesn't make sense, and I'm not digging it. So that beer is not going to get to be front and center.
You're an adult. You don't have to drink it.
Yeah,
I can put it here. That's cool.
And we got stuff going on. We have to play volleyball here in a little bit, so I was like, yeah, it's fine. Volleyball.
Volleyball.
All right, so brew news. Let's get it kicking. Let's get it whipping.
Right, so we kind of teed it up, right? There's always often these different happenings happening.
What is happening?
I'm very confused.
What is happening?
Why are they leaving? What is happening here?
Let me clear. What is happening?
I'm sorry. What is happening?
What's happening?
What is happening here? Why are you taping them?
What is happening here?
What is happening?
In the craft beer industry. And because it is about economy, finance, that's our theme for today. It's not all doom and gloom either, right? We got to look at the silver lining of things. Yeah. We're going to highlight some acquisitions happening, but we're also going to highlight those exits that are happening because honestly, it's just too funny of a timeline not to mention. So looking forward to getting into that. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's get rolling. We're going to start our brew news with Mr. Ryan Reynolds.
Mr. Deadpool himself. And Rob McElhenney. I don't know how to say it, guys. I'm sorry, all of you Sunny fans. I should know how to say it, but I don't.
It's McElhenney. While ways to massacre and mispronounce it, there are many.
McElhenney.
It's McElhenney.
McElhenney.
If there was doubt, now there won't be any. It's McElhenney.
They purchased the Wrexham Lager Brewery, which is like one of the oldest breweries in all of the UK, correct?
Excuse me. Yeah, I believe so.
I'm remembering that correctly. Part of what they're doing is selling off some of their ownership from their soccer club.
Yeah.
Taking that investment and then investing into the brewery, trying to combine the worlds together and also get the Wrexham Lager into the US and more like worldwide.
In Canada.
So it's an interesting like flip-flop, right? Like I feel like they bought the soccer team not that long ago. Really kind of ramped it up with their stardom, which helped. Started winning more games. They're still not like a top-notch crazy good team, but improved. Mm-hmm. And now they're selling it off to a family that really knows the soccer world. They know the team. I guess they know the family fairly well, so they think it's in very good hands.
Football is life, Capitan.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully able to like kind of take the team to the next level. And then decide to use that investment to keep investing within the community and kind of growing upon itself. And they chose beer.
Weird. It's like soccer and beer go together.
It's like they go together. There's also been a lot of
Soccer
celebrities jumping into the
sports.
beer world. It is kind of buy low profit.
Exactly.
There's a little bit of that happening, but
yeah.
There's a handful. So kind of a cool, interesting juggle. I'll be interested to see how that pans out long run. Excited to see Rob back behind the bar again because that only makes sense. And see what they're going to do with that.
Yeah,
it was unexpected. I think is why I like.
Actually,
I wasn't expecting that.
I think you hit the nail on the head about buying low. Beer has always been around. Beer is never going to go anywhere. You know, this is part of that. I think just having your fingers in as many pies as you can, as far as the investment world is concerned, and then they're actually with the New York State family, you know, it's part of an additional like joint venture, right? So there's other angel investors, venture capitals, whatever, buying into it. So to me, I think you hit the nail on the head on that aspect, and it's an opportunity for them to expand their portfolio. And hey, I think we all know if you're a sports fan, beer often goes hand in hand.
Probably like a beer.
Yeah, you probably like a beer, or you appreciate what it does for sports. I mean,
yeah, if they can get it into more of the stadiums, and
exactly,
you talked about beer being around forever. This brewery's been around since 1882.
Yeah, a long time,
like a long time. So I guess we can't say it's one of the oldest. I think it's one of the oldest lager breweries.
Yeah,
because there's been
that's like, what it is.
Monk breweries around for way longer than that.
So. Yeah. It's definitely a lager brewery. In the UK.
And lagers are back on the ramp up, you know what I mean? So
we did do a whole episode about Year of the Lager.
So
check that out.
And if you know, if those lagers are good and they can get here just as good, I'm in for it. Like I love European beer. They're always so freaking good.
There's a lot of good brewers over there for sure.
It's so clean. It's good water. So anyways,
there's a lot of good water. That's a big part of it.
Interesting piece.
So that's kind of the upside of the finance and economic theme of the Brews news. The bee's knees. But so the next one is the downside, and we'll talk about exits a little bit. And we're talking about Molson Coors. And if you recall, back in August, they were in the news for basically selling off four different craft breweries. Articles in the link, you can read all about it. They sold to this Canadian cannabis company so they can, buy low and get into the beer game in that regard, right? So that's their acquisition, but the exit for Molson Coors is offloading these, and they did so because basically they're like, hey, we want to focus on Blue Moon and Kugel.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, totally legit.
Yeah.
Get it. It's November. Now they're shutting down Kugel's, the original brew house in Wisconsin, yeah?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's the original.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's still combined
it's like 150 years old. But
into the same brew house and...
Right, and basically they're just downsizing, consolidating.
Yeah.
It's about efficiency, right? But
feels bad.
I did see an article this morning that I think it's something like 50 some people will lose their jobs because of it. I actually thought it would be more. Yeah. I was thinking in the hundreds. Now that's not to take away from the 50 people that are losing their jobs, because that's absolutely never any fun. But maybe they'll find a way to stay within the company. So the idea is that here is what we're highlighting is that there's these acquisitions and exits taking place, and these economics are constantly ups and downs and roller coasters. You're buying low, trying to sell high when you can, and hopefully not lose your ass in the meantime.
The other thing I think is kind of cool about it is because of where the market is and how things are changing, and you're seeing... I think about the Tivoli, right? They were like, we're going to triple down on, was it Mile High?
The Outlaw.
The Outlaw.
Outlaw Lager. It's actually right over there.
Because they wanted to start competing against Coors and Bud Light.
Exactly.
Right? Because they're going down, but there's kind of this middle ground size of breweries that, I feel like the really small craft breweries are struggling a bit. The really big breweries are struggling a bit. But kind of these medium, big size have some market to grab is kind of the feeling I'm getting, that people
That's a good point.
Are like, you know what, I do want a different, I still want a lager, but I want a different lager.
I want a rice lager.
Yeah, and so to get new fresh faces into the space, I think of the Kelsey brothers with the garage beer, right? You've got these guys getting into the lager space now. You've got Tivoli jumping into the lager space. It's just this interesting shift that I think there's that medium-sized brewery is trying to grab some of that lager space because it's open right now. And I think that's cool. I think that helps shake up the space. I think it just freshens it up a bit.
It freshens it up. It's also inevitable, right? Big often prevails while small guys fall off, even if they have been around for 10, 15 years. But that's not to say, Kugels, if you've been around for 150 years or so, it doesn't mean that you won't succumb to some sort of efficiency standard.
Yeah.
Consolidation.
And over COVID,
it kind of just is what it is. And we're in such a big, it's such a roller coaster turning point. And who knows where
that's
we go.
interesting because over COVID, those medium-sized breweries really struggled because they were buying enough that they weren't having, especially with cans, right? They weren't able to buy that huge, massive, big bulk.
Right.
That was getting their prices cut down.
Right.
But on the flip, they're buying enough ingredients, but still not enough to get the price. They were kind of in that middle ground of not being able to either have space or afford the big price cuts. And with everything going up, they were really hurting. Sure. But they also seem to be getting away from the craft beer model in these medium size, and instead are going, let's rock out these lagers and focus on that more, not being that medium to big size or bigger size brewery that's we offer 15 different flavors. Kind of seems like they're let's leave that to the craft beer space, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And it also, in theory, should open up shelf space for more craft beers.
Right. So I was just going to say, let's talk about distribution a little bit. We've heard from Cody, and we did hear from Sarah, a couple weeks ago about how they're trying to get back into distributing. Whereas before, it wasn't necessarily a thing for them. They were just doing a lot of to-go options, right? It makes sense. COVID and everything. You want to make sure that you have some sort of canning line so that you can get your beer out there when people can't necessarily be in the establishment. So now both of them were we're tipping our toe into distributing.
Yeah.
right? So, I mean,
some of those
what do you think
canning
about that?
Some of that canning equipment prices might be going down too.
I was wondering the same, right?
Because like a lot of those, like it's not Goose Island, it's whoever the Goose canning line is, might just be Goose. Like I would say in the last 5 years, started getting that smaller brewery size, like single head. You could upgrade it, but you're only going to rack out however many cans.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really like full blown production, but it was good for these really smaller breweries that either needed in-house or doing very small distribution.
Right.
But it wasn't this huge canning line. And so, of course, those prices are going to be really high because they're new. So I'm wondering if those prices are coming down. And in addition, less people going out, getting into the tap room. But apparently there's still enough sales going on that's going to probably offset some of the people not getting into the tap rooms.
Right. But you also brought up, opportunities for open shelf space. So, I mean, it would be interesting, how liquor stores are opening up those shelf spaces as well, grocery stores, etc.
Yeah.
Because I heard a lot about canning, not necessarily about kegging anything off and getting more into tap rooms, which they still might be.
Yeah.
But it was definitely more focus on those canning lines and just having the option available. So just curious.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't heard a whole lot of the keg distribution. The biggest thing I know is I've heard forever is the prices are just so hard to lock in.
Yeah.
Like for Old Chicago or any of those big tap rooms, right? Like, the reason they have those medium size and up brews is because their prices are just so much lower, right? When a brewery is going in and they're like, hey, it's $150 to $200 a keg, and they're still barely making good margins on it, and they have to drive it around, and they have to have a salesperson hired. Where Coors can come in and be like, hey, fill up like 6 of these draft lines, I'll sell it to you for $6 or like $50 a keg.
Right.
From the other business perspective, it's nearly a no-brainer, even though that might not be like what they want to do. It's just hard to justify that massive price difference. And again, if you can't get the price cuts, you're a small brew house. I mean, the biggest eye-opener thing that I had was like to brew a big brew, 3-barrel versus 7 versus 15 versus 20. For the most part, it takes pretty close to the same amount of time. Yeah. But if you have a 3-barrel and you need to get to 20, that's a lot of brews to get to 20. Yeah. It's like 7, you know what I mean? And it's 8 hours of brew. Yeah. That's just like hours wise isn't feasible to be doing that. So,
I like it. Interesting. So that's what's in the news. There's a lot of other articles out there. Closures happening, acquisitions occurring, exits, whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, it's a constant conversation. We don't always highlight. I feel like we do and we don't highlight acquisitions and closures, depending on kind of where it's at in the world, how it hits the heart, where it hits the home, all of that. But it's a special episode to highlight it because of our theme of public offering. So that was fun to do. I wouldn't say like no one has ever applauded me for my financial skills. So like, but I like considering the economics of things, right? Yeah. Supply chain, distribution, feasibility, time management, costs, bottom line, cost-based price scenario. Like those are fun conversations to have. They can become exhausting, but some people make a whole life out of them, and I think it's cool to consider. Yeah, especially when you do have bigger name like celebrities more and more coming into the scene. Obviously, they have a passion for it or some sort of connection to it, or else they wouldn't do it, right? But there is still money there, is the point that I'm trying to make, and there's still passion and interest.
Yeah, I mean, even a lot of the stuff I saw, breweries in general, still have a margin on them. The bigger difference is they hit more of the restaurant margins, which is like 5 to maybe 10% if you're having like a really crushing month. Like there's just not huge margins on them. Where for a lot of years there, it was 30, 50, 60% margins. Yeah. And so I think just a lot of breweries don't have the budget and the financial know-how to adjust for those differences based on their own models or adjusting prices or the amount that they were brewing. Like, there's a lot of variables that go into play within that I just think it's not a market you can't make a living on. You can pay your bills with it for sure. It's just how much are you going to have left over and how much did you up your lifestyle when you were making 50% margins versus
Good point.
5% margins, right? Like
Good
your
point.
lifestyle might not still
Good
apply
point.
to it because that's kind of what happens.
So that being said, right, a lot more reason why then you're coming back to seeing a lot more of your owners and your head brewers behind the bar again. It's not so much the conversation as in this short staff type of thing, like not necessarily that people don't want to work. I'm not saying that's not still a thing, but like you have to because it's more of that mom and pop mentality because you are more so married to the business. It's not this passive income because you're getting that 30 to 50%.
Definitely a lot more.
So I'm
presence.
picking up what you're putting down, which is cool, right? Because we're getting more of these ethos and origin stories coming out because they're there and we can have that conversation. And which is why community and collaboration comes up more and more because the community becomes even more and more tight knit to
be part of it,
be involved, be around. Yeah, exactly. It takes a village, and it's also craft.
But I mean, like it's craft. Like it's to me, it's like kind of meant to be that way, right? Like you don't have a mom and pop shop that has an absentee owner. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
where craft was at least for a long time kind of had that mom and pop type of vibe, but then it became more like corporate money focused. Had these absentee owners and just people that are working.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're kind of losing out of it.
Yeah.
And so
and gaining back
in different ways. All right.
I think it's a good segue.
Okay. So we're going to go into our main interview with Cody from Public Offering. Like we said, he has finance background, pretty sure a chemistry background. Yeah. Super interesting dude. He has a great, it's fun to hear how he makes decisions. And no surprise, they're very financially driven.
He's a business guy.
Yeah, which is great, right? I think there's a lot of brewers and owners and managers listen to this interview, and I think you'll get some tidbits of advice out of it. Things that he avoids, things that he doesn't avoid, things that he does sometimes. But like, if he can't get a good ROI out of it, he just is probably not going to do it. So,
and what's cool to know is they're just in their second year.
Yeah,
right. So there's still
beautiful place too.
Oh my God, it's gorgeous. Like it's very open. You'll love it. You're going to see it. And it's nice and clean, right? That's a big part. You walk into that bathroom is clean. And that is definitely the first place that I go and look. Besides the taps, that is. Taps and tanks. And by tanks, I mean toilets.
Taps and toilets. Both got to be clean for Lizzie.
Isn't it?
You're not wrong.
All right.
So yeah, without further ado, let's kick this interview off.
Hey everybody, we are on South Broadway in beautiful Denver, Colorado. We're about to head into Public Offering Brewing Co. and we're going to talk with Cody, owner and brewer. Let's go say hi to him. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Liz.
Cody.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, absolutely.
We're super excited to be here. We're going to check out the tap room. We're going to check out the brew house, but I'm really excited about this brew house because I love this space. I love how open it is. So take us in.
Yeah,
let's talk about it.
So we run a 10-barrel system.
Awesome.
We got 5 fermenters. A pretty standard brew house. I think the only kind of fun item that we have is it's called a tube and shell.
Okay.
So what we're able to do is anytime that we're whirlpooling mostly for hoppy beers, we can actually just run wort through the tube and shell. It'll cool down the wort pretty fast instead of running it through the heat exchanger. So we can kind of keep the temps in that 170, 180 when we're whirlpooling. So predominantly use it for hoppy beers, but we'll use it for pilsners and lagers and other items as well. So
how much time approximately are you saving using that?
Probably 8 minutes in the winter or shorter, maybe 10 to 12 in the summer.
Okay.
To knock down like sort of 30 degrees roughly. So
okay. I see you've got a bit of technology taking place over there as well. What do you got going on here?
This is a keg washer.
Oh, okay.
We don't use a ton of kegs. I've been holding off, but it's what I'm doing after this. So yeah.
What do you got brewing right now?
Right now we have a couple of lagers that are just cold conditioning right now. So we've got a dark lager in here. I'm a collab with a new brewery that's opening up called Mad Max.
Love that name.
We have a West Coast Pilsner in this tank. I won't say what we have in this one because it's one of the beers we're doing for our anniversary that we're reviving.
Okay.
So these 3 are full, and then I'm going to do, tomorrow I'm brewing. So we'll put another one of our new anniversary beers in.
Awesome. There. When's the anniversary?
We're celebrating November 2nd.
November 2nd.
Yep.
Awesome. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
How much are you brewing a week then? Just once a week?
Generally once a week, sometimes 2. It kind of just ebbs and flows, but generally about once a week.
Okay. What does that equate to over the year then? About how much?
I believe this year we're roughly going to be like 300 to maybe 350 barrels, something like that. So
nice.
Yeah.
And you're starting to distribute more?
We actually do everything in-house. We just started canning. We use Woods Boss for that.
Okay.
So this is our second run of cans. We've done a couple of kegs here and there, mostly just requests from bars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only one back here, and so I don't have a ton of time to be taking kegs around town. And I think just the economics of it works better for us in here. So we're always trying to push as much beer out the door and keep it fresh. But
I mean,
yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that then. Home brewing to opening a brewery?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your backstory there.
So I actually got my degree in chemistry in college.
Cool.
Moved very far away from that, but actually was a buddy of mine and I in high school started home brewing. And then when I moved back here in 2006, a few of my friends had bought some more home brewing equipment. I was the only bachelor at the time. And so everything ended up at my house, and we kind of just would do it for fun, excuse to get together. And then I think my chemistry side started to kind of kick in and wanted to continue to explore it. And then I ended up was kind of having a hard time of where I wanted to go with my previous job, and kind of had one foot out the door. My wife was really pushing me to try to at least explore this. So I did the Regis certification. And ended up entering over at Station 26. Cool. Part of the deal with that was I kind of had to be in there full days. Since I already kind of had one foot out the door, I think the goal was to always open up something like this. And so that's kind of where I got my start. And
nice.
What
year did you open this up then?
So we opened in 2022.
Okay.
November 2022.
Okay.
So this will be our second year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How easy, how difficult was it finding this space?
It was.
I mean, this is
it was tough.
Good sized brew house.
So I started looking in 2019, the fall of 2019. This was actually one of the first places that I looked at.
Okay.
And I liked this space, but unfortunately, they had a lease kind of in hand with someone else. I looked all over, was kind of looking for something that was, 4,000 square feet roughly.
Okay.
Had, outdoor seating, had parking. So the previous kind of tenant of this place was looking to open an event space, kind of ran into some issues with permitting with the city, as well as I think got a little cold feet with where they were at with COVID.
Sure.
So I ended up signing the lease for this in 2021.
Okay.
But it took us almost 2 years to open. So this was basically, we had the garage doors and the 4 walls, but this was like a completely blank canvas.
Okay. I love that you decided to do it open. I think that's a huge part of when people walk in and they get to see the brew house, right? Where the magic happens, right? Everybody always wants to see the master bedroom. This is it. Why did you decide to start with a 10 barrel system? I feel like that's a pretty
I think it's kind of one of those things where you go back and forth. Like it seemed like a 7 to 10 barrel, especially given the size of our tap room was where I was leaning towards. I think it's hindsight's always 20/20. Sometimes I'm like, I wish that I would have done a 7 barrel system, just so that we could kind of continue to like roll through beer a little bit faster and keep it fresher. I do like that I'm not in here all the time.
Sure.
I do have a family and kids,
Yeah.
and so it's a balance for sure.
Yeah.
We can do, and I will do smaller batches. So we'll do 7 barrels, about the minimum that we could do.
Sure.
But I will do that from time to time, just depending on kind of where our taps are and inventory and that. So we have a little bit of flexibility.
Sure.
For sure.
Talk to me about what you're brewing. Any flagship? You're constantly rotating through things.
Are constantly rotating through things.
Yeah.
I think we've had a Kolsch that has stayed. I've probably brewed it now 4 times and always tweaking with it. But that's probably the only beer that we've done that, or one of the few that has been somewhat consistent.
Okay.
We do have a couple of lagers that, like seasonal lagers, that kind of we've brewed a second batch of, I guess, or a second turn of it. Otherwise, it seems like most of the feedback that I get is everyone's always looking for something, whatever's new on our tap list.
Okay.
And so I'm constantly brewing something different
Yeah.
and brewing something new. So it's fun, it's challenging. But yeah.
Do you ever run into that maybe stubbornness versus creativity where you're like, I really like brewing this certain style of beer, but perhaps the customer or the demand says, I want all these other ones?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because I think sometimes you're like, I would love to try to brew this, but perfect it or kind of understand it. I mean, I think the hard thing is that you do something and you're like, I'd love to kind of see if I just made some minor tweaks with this, how it would end up the second time.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, I just feel like the feedback is like everyone wants something new and different.
Yeah. But maybe you get to focus on perfecting that with your anniversary beer.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be a different, it's sort of where we are, where I am is understanding the system from like the first day that we opened to where we are now is very different. And so two of the beers that we're brewing were 2 of our kind of relatively earlier beers.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's interesting to see like if I can see, how far have I personally progressed in doing these. And yeah, I mean, it's also been fun because we asked our guests to vote on what they want to see back. And it was nice to see so many people had opinions and really cared. So yeah.
Do you have then a favorite style you like to brew?
I like hoppy beers because they're fun. There are a ton of hops to explore, to play around with. I think from a brewing perspective, it kind of requires the most, I guess, like different tweaking or playing around and different steps. So I like those. I was never on the homebrewing side. I didn't do a ton of lagers, but that's been super popular in here. So it's been kind of fun for me to explore that and do something a little bit new and different and take me out of my, I guess, comfort zone in some regards. So.
Sure. And I feel like there's definitely that demand. You were saying earlier, like sessionable, crushable beers, right? Like I want to come in and have more than one and not saying that just because it's hoppy, it has to be super high ABV, but oftentimes it tends to go hand in hand. So I do love a lager for that, for sure. Let's see. What about malty then? We kind of talked about that earlier too. Talk to me about demand, hops, malts. How do you kind of keep up with that?
It's, again, like this has been a big learning process for me from year 1 to year 2 to kind of see learning just like what, seasonality, when are our busy times, when are our slow times, how do I manage what we're brewing at any given time? How do I manage our inventory levels? I think that when we first opened, I was, and I've tried to we've stayed pretty true to it of saying that we're going to be, predominantly hop forward. Kind of 60% of our menu typically is hop forward, but trying to have a well-rounded balance of everything else. So I do like to try to have something malty on, at least one option, and I think the nice thing is on the malty beers, sometimes those can have a little bit longer lifespan and runway where you aren't really seeing the flavor fall off.
Sure.
I also just, we can't have 3 different multi options at the expense of, everything else.
Right.
So
right. I think that's well said.
Yeah.
All right. I think beer is so much more than just the beer itself.
Right.
So let's go check out the tap room and then sit down and talk a little bit more than just the product.
Sounds great.
Even though that's the funnest part, right?
Right. Absolutely.
What a great background having a chemistry degree coming into
Yeah,
brewing.
I mean, I kind of left
like you
college and was thinking
understand so much
I'm never
more.
going to use this again, and now I am back to using it, so it's come a little full circle. We have a chain and disc.
Shoot, love those guys.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah.
Actually, I actually have a couple more. So go ahead.
Yeah, so we, it's obviously with the layout and everything. This is the mill room, and space is obviously super tight back here. And
Again, it's pretty clean, right? Like, considering I feel like it's usually just a dust trap walking in, but you've taken some good measures to help mitigate that. Easy on the locker room.
So it's not push this back. Root Shoot's awesome. I know them from working at Station 26.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And they're just
We got
great
to see their
partners
big
to have.
bags.
And we kind of out of the gate, we're craft malt certified.
Okay.
So kind of using local grain was
Okay.
important. Trying to use as much, small business local ingredients was important.
Yep. Who's the
RARs, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you're sourcing locally. That makes a lot of sense. Love Root Shoot. And they do everything themselves. They drive it down. They talk to you on the phone. They're driving it down.
Yeah.
Love them so much. Are you producing gluten-free, gluten-reduced as well?
We gluten reduce everything.
Okay.
I don't brew seltzers. Part of that is just capacity and demand.
Yeah.
I don't think I could ever justify saying anything is gluten free because we just have gluten floating around this place all the time.
Yeah.
But we do gluten reduce. We just use Clarex kind of based on what the manufacturer dosage rate is.
Yeah.
And we did it with not all of our beers out of the gate. And then it started to become something that really resonated with our guests.
Sure.
And so I don't see any flavor difference or stability or anything like that. And it was kind of a no-brainer. And the cost to do it is minimal. So
yeah, and that I feel like has been
like a selling point.
Exactly,
sure.
exactly. And does that have much of an effect on keeping ABVs lower as well? How does that kind of play into that game?
I guess like beyond just taking, reducing the gluten, like I don't think it has any impact on flavor, on attenuation, anything like that.
Okay.
So
cool. Do you have quite the air system as well going out of there?
It's just a bit, yeah. Nothing too crazy.
Cool. All right. I think that was a great spot to have.
Yeah.
Chips.
Yep.
Love chips. Safety. How is if beer is considered food in the county of Denver? How often do the health inspectors stop by? Very often.
Fingers, I guess.
Okay, I'm just curious.
They haven't stopped by. I mean, we had to get. Obviously, we had to get it. Get the permit out of the gate. But no, they haven't stopped by. Denver Fire comes by. I'd say they're the only one that's consistent about being over here.
That's good.
It's good. Yeah. I mean, they're doing their job and they're super nice about it. And
dogs are allowed on the patio then?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we would love to have them in the tap room. Just again, it's the
Food.
health code thing. So
cool.
You think that, and then you realize how much hair builds up.
yeah, no, for sure. For sure.
I do not miss trying to sweep up dog hair. That's for sure. This is just kind of like a side tangent. You can record or not. I told you I was recently in Edinburgh, and everything I came across, it was gluten-free, gluten reduced. And I was so surprised by that. But I was talking to someone else, and I think it's a measure of how they legally claim things in a title. Because a lot of it, I'm serious, it said gluten-free, and I was so surprised by it. But in hindsight, I was like, I bet it is more gluten reduced. Just because I often feel like gluten-free is a big flavor difference.
Yeah, yeah. For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
Whereas the beers I was drinking over there was low ABV IPAs and pale ales, and everything was just like, a lot of it was under 5%. And then it was also gluten-free. And I was like, but it tastes so freaking good.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away by how good it was. And then getting back and the extracts and just different things that you put in to bring it into reduce. Anyway,
I don't know.
About how can they be gluten free and be this good?
I don't really. I honestly sometimes when I see we used to get seltzer from Denver Beer Co. Like I've been in their facility. Like it's a mixed facility, right? Yeah. And whereas you go to Holiday and you're like, this is like, totally. It's like their tap room. You can't even bring gluten, you know, like even the snacks are gluten free. It's like, so I feel like that's a fine balance. We tell our staff, like, I'm not sending anything out to like a firmly or anything to say, hey, like what are the levels on this? It's just, we use the Clarex, we use the dosage rate as they prescribe. Yep. It's supposed to reduce it to under 20 parts per million. Yeah. If it kind of affects you, my thought is like this shouldn't. Yeah. But like if you have celiac or anything,
and
it's
if
like
you do,
absolutely
you're not gonna go near it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it's like, please, like we have Holiday Leaf for a reason type thing.
I used to work at a vegan restaurant in Old Town Arvada. Okay. Same type of thing. It was like if you have celiac or something, absolutely.
Don't go
near this sort of thing, right?
For sure.
And again, like I feel like if you actually have it, you're going to know that. And I'm not saying that a lot of people don't, but some are more, it affects them differently.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
So when you're opening a public offering, you vetted the space, you decide you're going to go with the 10 barrel system, and you've got this beautiful tap room. You said it was kind of a bit of a blank canvas. Talk to me about, where does the logo come from? Where does the name come from? Where do the colors come from? Because it is a big part of why people come through the door.
So the name, it is a play off of my old kind of career in finance. So obviously public offering ties into that. And quite honestly, it's really hard now to find any sort of name. Like my wife's in marketing and she's in the wrong kind of marketing for it to help me in here, unfortunately. But she had put me in touch with one of her work colleagues who I worked with. And, I told him kind of my general story and what I was looking for in like the brewery in general. And so we probably came up with a list of like, I want to say like over 100 names, and then like vetted those and started like crossing off, well, we can't use that because it's trademarked or this or that. And then we kind of narrowed it to 10. And it was funny, like I hadn't really thought about what those were. And then we had a group in here and we were kind of talking about it. And I went back and like looked at the PowerPoint presentation they put on with like all the names. And so public offering kind of the idea is like part of the process in all this was for me to kind of hone my, I guess like recipes and skills and get a little bit more feedback. Like while I was working on finding space, I had a kind of online program where it started with me emailing friends, and then that went to like friends of friends and friends of friends. Sure. So I think I had like a list of like 70 people, and I probably knew like 40% of those. And I brew a beer on my homebrew system. If you lived in a certain zip code in Denver, I would deliver a beer or 2 beers to your house.
So nice.
I asked you to do a quick like survey. Sure. Basically, it was all blind, right? So get like real feedback, and then I'd use that and say, okay, like, did this work? Did it not? But so the idea, like, it kind of, part of that was just trying to make people feel like, obviously, like they don't own the brewery, but like we want you to feel like this is partially yours. Yeah. Or, like you feel like a tie to it. I love that. So, the logo, obviously, like again, it plays off of public finance with like or I guess finance with bear and a bull. But the idea really is like, no matter who you are, where you come from, walk of life, like whether you're a bull or a bear, we can all bond over beer. And so that's kind of the idea behind the logo. And then obviously with this space, trying to make people feel like it's their brewery, they're a part of the brewery. We had to have a very open concept.
Sure.
So that was a big reason why why you can see everything.
Yeah.
I also want people to realize you can walk and see that we've got bags of root shoot back there. You can see the grain, you can literally follow the beer from the grain all the way through the brewing process. You can see it in the tanks, in our walk-in. The idea is part of the reason why, have signs on the back of the fermenters is so that people can see okay, what's coming next and, what is in this. And, I'm sure some people are I don't really care. And some people maybe get really excited and say they've heard of this hop and I want to try it. Or
I feel like it's always a mixed bag.
Yeah, for sure.
That's super cool. And I've never heard of anybody home brewing and then taking their beers out to people to get feedback.
Yeah, I definitely.
Neither,
I definitely put some bad beers out there, but it was it's
can't be perfect every day.
No, and it was a good thing too to kind of see on a sign up sheet if I release. It's true. If I say, hey, we've got an amber this week, maybe I have 20 people sign up. Whereas if it was an IPA, we get 40 people, and
sure.
There'd be a cap of how much I could brew because I was going off of a 5-gallon system. But that was kind of interesting for me, at least, to kind of see hey, what do people care about and things like that. So,
Smart. It's a good market research.
Yeah, for sure.
Of you.
For sure.
And I feel like it's extended, right? You continually do that.
Yeah. This is one big experiment. I feel in here. It's kind of we'll throw things against the wall and, hopefully it works. Sometimes it doesn't. And 10 barrels is a fair amount of beer, but, you can work through it and figure it out.
When you're getting guest feedback then within the tap room for what you're still brewing, are you putting out little survey notes or is it just general word of mouth?
No, I try to have our staff keep lines of communication open where it's if,
sure.
Whether it's positive or negative, I've got thick skin. It's not going to hurt my feelings if someone is I didn't like the way that this tasted or this or that. So I think that's a big thing of just having our staff know hey, please, I want to hear that when you say people come in and they're looking for something malty and we don't have it on, it's okay, I understand that maybe it's not something super malty, but it is important to have an option. Because I do want everyone to walk in here and feel or guests to walk in here and feel there is something for them,
sure.
And sometimes I think that's making sure that our staff also knows maybe push a little bit more of the experience, or it's
sure.
a hot day. You might
sure.
really like something malty, but I love drinking this fruited sour because it's just super quenching, thirst quenching. And, so I think it's kind of also trying to push people a little bit to be I understand that you like malt, but there are, a lot of other options for a reason.
Yeah. Keep your mind open.
Yeah.
What about visitors coming through the Denver area? Does that really influence that feedback that's coming? Do you notice? Do you even notice?
It's a little hard. I think anyone, I'm guilty of going back and looking at Untapped and
sure.
trying to parse, whatever I can out of there. And sometimes you can see this person clearly doesn't live here. It's hard. It's hard to gauge who I know and I know that our staff knows guests that are local and neighbor and come a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it is hard to gauge where people are coming from. How did they hear about us?
Sure.
Things like that. So
yeah, but you got to get your data. I feel
I'm
for
getting
sure. More of the
for
background,
sure.
Right? The more, the better.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is just our staff starting conversations with people and kind of learning that way. And
do you think there's really that big of a difference of what people who regularly come in drink versus people who are just stopping by drink?
Yeah, I don't know. That's tough. Yes and no.
It is a hard question.
Yeah. I think that those that are more of our regulars, it's, again, it's kind of oh, I heard that you're releasing this new beer. I want to come in and try it.
Yep.
I think anything in the industry, it's, hoppy beers are what we sell the most of. So I think if someone just kind of walks in from off the street and doesn't know us, like if I'm, I guess like Passport, like Hop Passport is a good frame of reference for me. Like I would venture to guess that a lot of the beers that we sell through Hop Passport, because it's people kind of bouncing from brewery to brewery, and usually it's not necessarily like in their neighborhood, that we probably sell way more hop forward beers than anything else.
Okay.
What's it like being down on South Broadway? I mean, it's such like a busy area. You've got to have some influx of new people, but there's also a lot of community, and it's an intense spot with a lot of competition.
It is, I think that when we first opened, there was a lot of, you just opened next to grandma's house and you've got Ratio and, Platt Park and Denver Beer Co. and Post, and there are a lot of breweries around here. My perspective was we're kind of the new kid on the block. No one knows about us. No one should really worry about us because, you've had however many years to establish your brand and we don't have anything. But I also think it's nice that people will come in here and say, I just came from, wherever, and they recommended that you come here. It's, we might have someone walk in at 1 and it's like, hey, we don't open until 3, but you know what, like Platt Park is open. I know they're open. Ratio's open. You can kind of see things turning down here. It is tricky because Broadway, for being such a big thoroughfare, everyone is just like zooming by. We're somewhat fortunate that we're neighbors with Corvus. So out of the gate, it's just, they, attract a lot of people. And so I think people kind of see, we would have a lot of neighbor businesses as we were doing the construction and getting close to open, would constantly kind of be like poking their head in and whatnot. But I also, we were too short staffed this year, but last year when Pearl Street revived their Oktoberfest, and we poured there, and I feel like we would have a lot of people say, and here at period, but a lot of people are like, oh, I live in this neighborhood, I've been here for so many years, and I just learned about you guys, or just kind of like I walked by you so many times, and then I just finally came in, and so it's tricky just because we don't get that like downtown tourism. There are a fair amount of new apartments going up, but we just still haven't seen that yet. Okay. And we back up to neighborhoods, but it's not, there just aren't a lot of people necessarily like walking up and down South Broadway all the time. But
so then what kind of events are drawing people in, or what are you doing?
It's always it's a struggle. Yeah. I mean, we do, trivia, which has been great. We have a local guy, Travis. He just does it with us in Bent Barley. He's hilarious. I like using him because he's very personable, very funny, and he's not just kind of sitting there reading questions and giving answers. We just started bingo. I think we've done it 3 or 4 times, and that's been done well for us as well. We've tried music. We were doing a fair amount of live music, like call it once a month, maybe once every 2 months. Okay. And it's just hard to gauge sometimes, like, are we pushing people out because they don't want something really loud? Mm-hmm. Or if it seems really busy in here, is that just because it's a busy day, or like did the musicians actually attract them? Right. I think that right now the industry is really pushing like to get younger drinkers. You need to make these like experiences and this and that. And we're kind of struggling with like what connects with people, what doesn't, what makes frankly business sense for us. And, sometimes I'm just like, maybe people just want to come here and relax and enjoy a beer and enjoy the space. Yeah. And like, that's the experience. And it's tricky. I mean, I know our staff is always like, do more events because they want to bring as many people in here as possible. It's like, just because we have an event doesn't mean that it's going to resonate with people. And, it's trying to find like, what's the purpose of the event? Who are we marketing it to? How are we getting them interested? Are they even interested? And it's hard to figure out and measure.
Yeah. It's marketing in a nutshell, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always hard because there isn't necessarily a defined number attached to it. So
Yeah.
it makes it really hard to figure out if there's any ROI and if it's worth the headache.
For sure.
Everything that you're putting into it.
Yeah. It's like, and I mean, it's kind of like, oh, you didn't push it enough on Instagram or this or that. It's like, well, I can, sometimes like, do we push this too hard and then people just tone us out because they're like, I get it, like I'm just over it, So yeah, it's tricky. Like, just because you market it doesn't mean that anyone's going to care, I guess.
Yeah.
If you build it, it will come.
Yeah.
No, not always.
Yeah, not always. Yeah.
No. I love the idea of, I see the spent grain coming up here, of incorporating, right, reusing materials, right? That's pretty brilliant. Have you done it before?
No, this is a one-off. This is new. I don't, again, in the experiment, it's like, we'll see. Grain Bakers is based out of California.
Oh, okay.
So I think Caitlin is trying to, and she's almost testing the waters here. I know that she's done a lot of events in Boston, and I think that's worked well for her.
Gotcha. So she's going to expand.
It's us, Woods Boss, and Bierstadt are the ones that are doing it this week. And
nice.
We'll see. I mean, again, it's, it's $60 a ticket. And sometimes I'm like, that sounds more like California pricing to me, but it's just hard to, again, but I can't really say, like, maybe it should be like, this is her business model. And, but it's tricky too, because it was kind of pitched like, we want you to collaborate with us on Instagram, but we'll do a lot of the marketing work. And then sometimes it's like, I feel like we're getting pushed, like, you're not posting this enough or this or that. And it's like, well, we have a lot of other things that we kind of need to focus on. This is one day and 365. Like,
we're not expecting this to make or break us.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to say about the neighborhoods that are around you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You're still tapping deeper and deeper into that.
Yep.
While also competing with what's around you. Although it is a collaborative, community-based profession, at the end of the day, is it a business or is it a hobby, right? And business is going to keep people coming through the doors. And I feel like that does resonate with a good walking score, for lack of better words, right? And not necessarily just drawing in for the big wow factors. I think you have to have the big wow factors, events, trivia and bingo, but make it consistent, right? So people know that they can rely on you for a good beer and a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
We're always talking about like there's this maybe a plateau in the industry, right? I mean, Grandma's House is no more, and there's been some in and out breweries, especially on the street. Breweries still pop up.
So go right back in.
They come right back in. So clearly something's working. And how do you fill the space consistently? Like I said, like you have a big space. You can fit a lot of people.
We have a very big
here.
space.
I also think there's a bit of a pro and con with so many other breweries and so close. Is like, you don't need to necessarily duplicate the same events that they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
But if anything, then you can go, cool, I can wean those out because Monolith has music every Friday. We don't need music every Friday. Let's do something different.
Right.
Versus kind of being in the solo area where really like you're trying to fulfill being the entertainment, everything center almost makes it harder. You kind of got to be like, oh, cool, we're going to not do that now.
Yeah, for sure.
Then push to our friends. Yeah, go over there for music. That'll be a great time.
Yeah.
Too loud? Come over to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also see opportunities for, and I don't know how this plays out from a business perspective, but like sharing or collaborating tap takeovers, that sort of thing. Like, I don't know. Somebody brought this up the other day. We're putting, not making it a tap house, but breweries sharing more taps together. So it's not just within the brewing process and sharing ingredients and pushing a beer out together, but again, marketing that together as well. So people can say, oh, I can get two in the same place, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think events and how you market that plays into a big part of that. And I feel like okay, so you got open in 22, so you're post COVID and you're in a big space and an interesting part of the area. You've got people zooming by, but there are a lot of neighborhoods behind us. So how you're keeping up with filling those seats, I guess, is always interesting.
I like your patio. I didn't know you had a
Thank
patio.
you. Yeah, well, that's the other thing. It's like we constantly, because it's not out front, no one realizes that we have the patio. And, it's we've tried to really push this year of making that a much more comfortable space, making it feel a little bit greener, like you aren't looking right back into the alley, like you aren't necessarily like on South Broadway. And sometimes it's just one of those things where it just takes time and visibility and people seeing that,
Big sign that's like, patio.
Yes, exactly.
As dumb as those are.
Live
for
patio.
sure. Yeah, exactly.
So it was really funny. So when I helped open Four Noses, we ended up with one of those like white yard signs with the flimsy metal, and we literally just sharpied on brewery with an arrow. And the amount of people that came in and were like, oh, I saw that sign. We're like, you didn't see the giant like brewery painted across the entire back of the building, but this shitty little white sign drew you in, and it was
unique.
It was astonishing how many people were like, I saw that sign and came in, and we're like, why don't we paint this big?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Why don't we paint this big fucking mural on this wall and nobody reads it? So it's like, it's funny how like the simple little things, I mean, you've brought it up, you're just like, you hear it from people and you're like, really? That's
all I needed.
Right. Live nudes worked.
That would be really funny to put that up and be like, just kidding. Just a flashing sign right when you walk in. Just kidding.
But I'm sure like I'm a dog mom, big dog lover. Like I want to know, can I bring my dog, right? So I know they can't come inside, but whatever you got to do to, make it easy for me to give you my money. I want to drink beer, and 9 times out of 10, my dog's going to be with me. And if I know that patio is back there, I'm going to come because it is there, because I know I can comfortably sit down and not worry about that. I realize not everybody has a dog, and I'm playing to myself.
We're in Colorado.
Colorado is a huge canine community. And so for better or worse, going dog friendly over whatever amount that you need to, or patio friendly, right? Over 300 days of sunlight, people are going to want to sit outside. I think that's a big part. What can you tell us about anything new coming up, or besides the anniversary? That's a big thing. We got please get into that. That's huge. 2 years, that people can look forward to.
I think like we talked about, we are constantly rotating our offerings. I think some people maybe, it's always hard for me to tell, like, should we have some sort of core beers? The feedback that I feel like we get the most is, wow, you guys never have the same beer. I kind of, I think they guests appreciate that. So I think it's just one of those things where we're constantly, rotating through things, and trying, new grain, malt styles, what have you. Certainly our anniversary party is the big one coming up, and we're being on kind of the heels of Halloween. We're kind of doing a Day of the Dead theme on this one.
Awesome.
So we're reviving a few beers that we previously brewed, and took feedback from our guests as to what they wanted us to bring back and put that to vote. We will have live music that day. We will likely have a face painter. We get, I think the other tough thing in here is the mix of demographics that we get. We get a lot of families. We also get a lot of, either empty nesters or people without kids, and sometimes those kind of butt heads a little bit, and it's hard to figure out, like, I can't push one group out at the expense of the other. And I totally understand that sometimes you want to come in, I think the most negative feedback that we've gotten is there were too many kids in there. It was like, and it kind of like, well, okay, just come at 6 p.m., not 2,
Right. Again, if it's in the marketing and the advertising, right, that this is family friendly.
Yeah. And I think for the most part, like the families are well behaved, and I get it. I'm a parent, and sometimes you're playing pretty quietly over there. Like I'm gonna not fully pay attention to you, and it's just like I think it's a struggle for everyone. But so I think for us, it's trying to make that balance. So we will likely have a face painter. We have Delilah's Tacos, who is a good truck for us.
Nice.
I think we'll have some glassware, hopefully. I'm trying to think what else. A lot of new beer releases.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
I think that's a great excitement for people, especially if the feedback is we want new release styles coming out, right? You brought up Delilah's Tacos. What other kind of food trucks do you have coming through, and are they setting up back by the patio here?
That's a battle.
As a food lover,
it's easier. We try to get as much of a diversity as we can. I think that you certainly have trucks that come in and I think understand that there will be slow days some days, and then other days it's going to be really busy, and hopefully you kind of take the good with the bad sometimes. So we certainly do have a lot of, I'd say, like Mexican or Latin cuisine in here. We do have pizza, like Blue Pan has just started coming, and they're pretty consistent. At least we try to have them in, once or twice a month. So it kind of rotates. It's easier for us to put them out back. And I think in general, for most of the year, for certain times during the year, when our patio is really busy, that's probably the best place for them. But I also understand like they're trying to run a business, so they want to be out front. We just can't.
Tell them they need a live nude sign.
We just can't always guarantee, like that we can block off space right in front of our place. So it's, exactly. It's tricky. It's tricky.
How much do you think the food offering, does that play into how people come and go? Do you think it is a big difference of whether or not you have a food option?
Yeah, I do. I think that we've had some feedback from guests on some trucks that, maybe like were a little bit slower to put food out, or, maybe weren't as focused on the guest experience, like kind of just coming in and screaming in the middle of a tap room, like I have like chicken burrito, whatever. You're like, oh my gosh, okay.
Come get your
a better way
burrito.
to do this. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
There are certainly trucks that have a following that, if we have them here, they're probably drawing people that, wouldn't necessarily come in. So it's great for us as well,
Right.
But I also, I know we understand they're running a business and we don't have them in here all the time. I think it's kind of understanding the dynamic of what do you need revenue wise for this to make sense for you? Because I'm not going to have you come in on if we know like it's seasonally, okay, our Sundays are starting to slow down. Like we're not going to start booking food trucks if they're just going to say, business is too slow. So I think it's kind of, and obviously every truck is different in what they need and their overhead and whatnot. So I think it's kind of just like developing those relationships and understanding that. And
are you then being like, hey, like feel free to bring in food, or we've got snacks behind the counter.
Food options.
Yeah, we do.
We
we tell everyone you're more than welcome to bring in your own food. The tricky thing again around here is there's not something super, a door down that's food that you can get. I think we kind of have to be careful a little bit. Like we've had, baby showers in here and they bring a big spread of food because we say you're welcome to do that. And then the truck is like, why do you have this huge group, but they're not going to buy anything from me? And it's it's just hard. Like, we're trying to run a business here ourselves. And if we need to allow groups to bring in their own food to get them to come in here, we're certainly not going to say no.
I have to ask about coming off of festival season, Great American Beer Festival, not Oktoberfest, but I guess it was also Oktoberfest season. Talking about getting people into the tap room, what does it mean to you, or again, for better or worse, coming off of something like Great American Beer Fest, do you think that plays into how people approach coming into breweries, and what that means to you?
It's tricky. The festivals, our take, probably more my take on it is this tap room is like our biggest selling point. I hate to kind of crush my ego, but no one's coming in here specifically for the beer. They're coming in here for the ambiance. Our staff does such a great job.
Sure.
They're coming in here for the space. It just happens that we, have, I guess, good enough beer that they can enjoy that too. But, having someone come in here is our biggest selling point. So pouring beer at a festival, it's really hard to gauge, okay, are you, how much am I going to get you to come visit us, depending on where you live? Obviously, we're drawing mostly from people around here, and I'd say a lot of breweries are, the same way.
Yeah.
We aren't out in the market distributing. We aren't, we're canning, but we're selling out of our fridge.
Right.
So the festivals, it's, if we were trying to push our product out into the market, I'd say it's more important because you're getting that visibility if someone's like, oh, I have tried their beer and now I'm in the supermarket and I see that, or I'm at the liquor store. Whereas it's like, you're either going to come here because you want to see the space, or maybe you did really enjoy the beer that we poured and you wanted to try it out. So we don't participate in a lot of festivals. It's got to be pretty close. GABF, I think it's hard we're just such a small brewery. It's hard for us to really stand out. If the booth wasn't free, I don't know if we would have participated in it, because it's, a lot of labor on our end. We're pretty small staffed as is, so we were stretched thin with managing in here as well as staffing over there.
Right.
And then obviously, the beer, it's cheap to produce in some regards, but those kegs are pretty valuable to
Absolutely.
us, So yeah, it's tricky. I don't think that our business model is like built to be that. And as much as I'd love for us to be a hype brewery and, have all these followers untapped and, have kind of the beer nerds like really push to come in here, it just isn't who we are, what our demographic is, and so it's just the festivals for us, I don't think play as big of a selling point for us.
Right.
But I understand other breweries that makes way more sense for them.
Yeah. Sure. At the end of the day, I feel it's always about your why, right?
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm hearing, like the why is really this public offering, like here's the space. Community. Yeah, exactly. Come have a beer, come chat with some friends, or just a place to go.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. I think it's hard too. Like you're pouring an ounce of beer, like that's all they can get. Like I would, if our staff really short poured any beer, just, some for a guest to just sample, I'd say give them, 2 to 3 ounces. So you can't really taste the beer. And so I think that's the other hard thing is it's just so quick. And it's really hard to stand out and your palate's probably getting destroyed by everything else.
I think the festivals are always interesting because for some, it is a very big deal, right? Like you're putting yourself out there from homebrew to this is all I ever want to do. And I want it to be the best beer that's ever created. And I get that. And I appreciate that, especially after going to the awards ceremony and like how excited everybody was. It was hard not to get hyped up with them. You know? Have you done World Beer Cup or anything?
Yeah,
like that as well?
We'll always put it, it's one, the feedback I think you kind of always have to take with a grain of salt a little bit. And I've talked with a couple other brewers and just saying like, what is like what do you consider a win? Because obviously like your odds are so small and you just don't know.
Depending on the category.
And so that, I think just kind of trying to understand like, how do you view this feedback and what are you trying to get out of it? So we'll always throw in, a couple beers into those and, you kind of always keep your fingers crossed. Again, like even if we won, I don't know if it would matter to our following our guests. And so, I think that's more of like an ego thing for probably like me personally, and feeling like you fit into the industry a little, like, I feel like that would be like, okay, like, am I going to be accepted a little bit more by the industry, type thing.
It also kind of forces you into having it on.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Also that.
For sure.
Exactly.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but yeah.
What about for our industry folks that are watching, listening in, you talk about your staff being a big part of the ambiance, right? And the good experience. How do you go about either vetting individuals that come in and want to be a part of Public Offering, and or, I had a way better question. Just how do you go about that? It sounded way better in my head. Anyway, so people that are excited about what you're excited about, I feel like that's always a hard thing, right? Especially when it's close.
Yeah, we've been fortunate that for the most part, our staff, if anyone's left, it's because it hasn't been some issue that we necessarily had with them as, management, or they had with us. It was, they got, either they're like moving out of the industry, or they got a promotion at a different job and didn't have time. I think it's easy for us we run really like small staff in here, and we're trying to maximize our staff's take home. So we're often running with like one beer tender at a time, maybe two on the weekends, and it's like a quick overlap, and I know our staff will kind of push sometimes of being like, I want to cut now, like we'll have to say like, you need to stay until 4 because we're like, we have seen that we get these pushes, so like just make sure that you don't get stuck, because there is a certain level of service that I think we're trying to provide in here, and when you're just stuck behind the bar, it's hard to do, and we've got a big space, so we want to make sure that it's clean and kept up and whatnot. But so I think a big selling point for us with staff is like your take home's pretty good, like it's really good, and I think even looking at other breweries and kind of seeing what they are saying, take home is, like where we fit on that competitive landscape, I'd say like I would venture to push us on the higher side. Awesome. We also, there are some expectations from our staff as well. And it's hard. Like, I think the biggest thing is I've got a family. I kind of purposely am in the back and here 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, because that's when I can afford to be in here. And so I don't get a ton of overlap with staff all the time. And, sometimes it's hard to figure out, like, how much do you want me in here or need me in here? Or is it like, oh my gosh, you're like, the dad is coming back in. Like, I don't want, it's like tricky. So, it's hard. I think for me personally, that's kind of the hard disconnect in some regards, is that I see and hear and know of a lot of things, maybe more than like our staff totally understands, but like I might not see everyone on a regular basis, because we've got a couple staff members that have full-time Monday through Friday jobs and do this as supplemental income. And they're here on a Saturday or Sunday and they just can't get over here and whatnot. So, but yeah, I mean, we've been fortunate with our staff, that we've had great staff, and I know that all of our guests and regulars like really, appreciate them, and they do a great job with.
I always feel like you got to tip your hat a little bit to the front line. And not that I don't personally feel like anything is really that different post-COVID when it comes to the service industry. There's plenty of people that have disagreed with me in that, because there's always this, you can kind of be more choosy about where you want to be, right? And so I think if the selling point is that there's a great take home and I'm here for supplemental income, or maybe it's all that I do because I don't really overly need that much, that's a great selling point. And then I always feel like there's a lot that goes behind of, how how everyone reciprocates one another and how you're treated. So, and if it's about community and collaboration, I feel like cool, right? Like I feel like that makes it easier on top of, it's not just about the money. It's sometimes about the money, but
I mean, no, I think you have to figure out what because we have had, and there's some staff members that the key driver is like, what is my take home every single day? And I totally respect that. Like, that's not, your motivation is your motivation, but we just want to make sure that everyone's kind of like in line with things. And I think it's hard to, for me at least, like, at the end of the day, this is still a business, and it's like it's breweries, I think, look very blue collar, but like the business is very white collar in some regards. And it's like, how do you make everyone see that, and I like a big learning point for me is just no one's going to care as much as I do, and you kind of have to take a step back a little bit and be like, I can't nag you about this because I understand why you don't care about it, but like it means a lot to me, and so it's kind of just fine. And like I've had to learn and grow from that a lot too, and figure out like, where can I step in, when can I step in, how can I step in, and so
it's the beauty of growing in relationships.
For sure.
Love that. Do you have? No. All right, last but not least.
It's like I have my one last one.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'll do my one last one. If you could be any beer in the world, what beer would you be and why?
Oh, man. Like specific name or just anything?
Dealer's choice. Style, name.
I gravitate towards Southern Hemisphere hops.
All right.
I've never gotten down to New Zealand. My wife did a semester abroad down there. We always talk about going down there. So I think kind of like going and, I know there are breweries that are tied to the hop farms, and kind of like doing that would be, I think, something that I'd probably care the most about,
Cool.
So.
I love that. That's a great answer.
All right. This is
I'm
my
allergic to New Zealand hops.
they're also my favorite hops, though. I do. My new favorite question that we started asking over JBF people was, if there's a style of beer you wish would fall off the face of the planet, what style would it be? I like it because it's controversial and people get really spicy about it.
Personally, like, and this is going to sound really basic, but like the brown or amber ale, like you just get so many. I think that they can be interesting, and I would like to figure out a way to make them interesting. But I feel like my issue with them is someone comes in and they're so hard-headed of like, I want, this beer and this is all I want, and I'm not going to go explore anything out. And I feel like the beers that those people are looking for are like the amber or a brown, and I'm like, we don't have that. And then it's kind of like, well, why don't you? And it's like, well, we tried and it just didn't sell. And as much as I want to have something for everyone, we just can't afford to do it. And it's kind of one of those things where I'm just like, but I just wish that you would be willing to like branch out a little bit, and try this. So I'd probably just, even though like, I feel like that's like one of the first things that I homebrewed, and that's like how you like got your start, You're like, okay, like let's move on. I feel like so many other beers have kind of like changed and progressed and gotten more interesting, and those beers, it's just like, this is it.
They're there for the people that don't want change.
Yeah.
I love that. It's a great answer.
Well, thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for taking the time
Absolutely.
to hang out with us, and we'll be back. Did you like the song?
Did you like the interview? Like I said, I just think it was such a good interview. I really, really liked how Cody made decisions. And the piece we talked about that was really interesting is we left, and I feel like he doesn't give advice because he's not there giving advice, but he talks about, makes decisions in ways that I feel like we are like, don't make decisions that way, do it this way. And clearly it's working for him, right? So I always love hearing these other sides of opinions and how to do things, because there's, life is, there's never one right way to do something. There's like a million right ways to do stuff. And it probably just comes into consistency. and doing it consistently throughout. And then you can like make these pieces work. It's just kind of funny to hear. I felt like numerous things that he came up with. I was like, wow, like when I go in and do consulting, these are like sometimes like some of the top things. I'm like, don't do that. This is not great.
I have to differ because I feel like his big thing is like, I'm going to brew what the people want. And when we talked to Ryan from Fiction Beer Co., right, and we talked to Sarah at Empourium, like they have their flagships and they are consistent in that matter, where Cody's like, I'm not going to put, malty beer on throughout the whole year. That just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not going to do it. If everybody came in and said that they want an IPA, he's going to make sure that IPAs are on. It is very community focused in that regard. And his investment is in the people that are coming into that tap room. So to not totally tear that apart, his consistency is in that community and not necessarily the brew. Which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I think it's really cool. And there is that he's doing it consistently. It's just like when we talk about like having a beer lineup, like I could look at the number of taps you have and tell you exactly what I think you should have on tap year round, which ones are playable. And he does totally opposite with it. And even like running events. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like I love it being able to hear those things and expand my own knowledge base. So appreciate that from you, Cody. And hopefully you had a good time watching your own interview.
Tony, why don't you want to go to a hotel? I don't know.
You guys love super cool beer shirts to wear while you're drinking your super chilled, cool beer. Head on over to the Body by Beer podcast website and get some sweet ass shirts that I designed myself, and they'll get shipped directly to your door. And we're also getting close to holidays, so if you want like to give a gift,
it's a good gift.
They're a good gift. So there you go. Come check it out. Get a shirt, take a picture, send it to us. It'll make us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Thanks. All right. So as you guys have seen throughout the course of this show, like we've been very, very fortunate to interview some incredible owners, incredible brewers, get advice from them on how they see the space moving, things they would do, things they do differently, things that like they see other breweries doing wrong. Yep. And on top of it, like our almost combined 20 years of experience in the craft beer space and the discussions that we've had in looking at purchasing breweries and how do you evaluate markets. Yeah. It's kind of where this whole fun facts is going to go, is we're kind of combining all of this knowledge together in a fun way via me. And
hopefully an old calculator.
Yeah. And it's going to be like brewery wisdom instead of necessarily just like beer facts.
Yeah. As far as it really went, you're going to talk about investment, market strategy, risk mitigation, right? So the ghosts of Christmas, past, present, and future. That's what you're going to talk about.
There you go. See?
This is Sips of Wisdom.
Sips of Wisdom. You're looking to open a brewery? I got some advice for you. When you're opening a brewery, there's 3 basic ways you can make money off of your beer. You've got the 3-tiered system, the 2-tiered system, and direct sales. So the 3-tiered system's where you give your beer to a distributor and they go sell it to the world. The 2-tiered systems where you go out to the world and you give it to the world. Think of like grocery stores, liquor stores, all that fun stuff. The direct to sales is going to be like your tap room, where you're handing beers directly to the person buying it versus the store buying it to then sell it to the people. Those are the main ways you make money off of your beer. You need to really think about diversifying the ways you're bringing in revenue, because there's a lot of other ways to bring in some revenue. You've got events, you've got distribution sales like cans to go, you've got merchandise, you've got mug clubs, you've got music that you could charge for. There's a lot of different cool ways you can also bring in some revenue while still allowing your beer to be the hero and bring in the bulk of your money. Location, location, location. Kind of. There's a little bit of a variable in here because you need some special stuff as a brewery. You need really strong flooring. You need good ventilation. You've got zoning requirements to worry about. You've got building requirements. You've got safety requirements. You have brewing requirements. You've got water requirements. So the location is very important. You need to have a good building for what you're doing. And when you're getting ready to do this build, especially if you're doing it from the ground up, you can expect to spend anywhere between $10 and $30 per square foot to get everything built in your building. You got to know your licenses. There's going to be 4 major licenses that it's going to vary based on what state you're in, but you need to at least know these basic ones. You've got the business license. You've got the TTP license, which is going to be your alcohol and tobacco taxes. You've got your restaurant licenses, and you have your liquor licenses. Again, costs on these are going to vary depending on your model, depending on your state. You might not need all of these, but it's still good to have a good idea of what these mean and they mean for your business. So you're going to need them. Opening a brewery is not cheap. You can expect to spend anywhere between $100,000 to $1 million, depending on how big of a brewery you want. Let's get into those basic initial costs. You've got equipment. You've got building development. You've got cold storage, wastewater system. You've got lab equipment. You've got kegs you gotta buy. You gotta have the beer somewhere. You've got licenses. And those licenses have to get renewed every 2 to 10 years, depending on where you live. Then don't forget, you have expenses for building out your tap room. You have expenses for marketing coming in. You have insurance. You have utilities that are building before you even open. That's got to go into the initial build out as well. It's not for the faint of heart. It is doable. People love when it gets going, but you got to have some upfront cash to get going. And you really want to hit the quality well. So get a good brewing equipment. One of the best advice we ever heard was don't expect to get bigger. Don't expect to change it. Do it right the first time, because once you're in and moving, what are you going to do? Shut down production for an entire day because you want to get a bigger kettle in? Like, you're just not going to. It's not how that works. You end up having to change all of locations. So just do it right. Get it done the proper way, and it's going to save you a lot of hassle, and you're going to be so much happier long run. So don't undercut yourself. Have fun. Let's go. Do you have a tap room? There's expenses that come in with that. You've got seating and tables. That can cost you anywhere between $1,000, good luck, or up to $40,000. Good chairs are expensive. People don't want to hang out if they're uncomfortable, and you need a good table. We've all been to the restaurant with the wobbly table. Freaking sucks. On top of that, you got to think of your draft line. You got to get that whole system installed. That can cost you close to $30,000, especially depending on how long and far away your cold room is compared to where your draft lines are. And to add into it, things to consider. Lighting is important. If you're going to have a mural up, what's the walls going to look like? What are your color schemes? So you can have art up on the walls. These are all things to consider when you're creating your ambiance and your brand of what people are going to see and come in. You want people to come in and feel instantly welcome and instantly excited to be in there. So the energy's got to be good. Don't skimp on this if you're planning on doing a lot of direct to sales and expecting your tap room to bring in the bulk of your money. This is your biggest investment right now. You got through all your bulk costs, right? You're like, I'm good to go. But maybe you kind of forgot about your ongoing costs. All right, let's break those down a little bit. You've got electricity, you've got water, you've got ingredients, and an ongoing with your ingredients. You want to use high quality ingredients. They're going to cost a little bit more. You can basically expect to spend about 10 to 30% of your entire gross revenue on your ingredients. Again, you've done the bulk cost, getting everything started. People love coming in. Now you got to nail that beer, get good quality, get good flavors, get consistency. And that costs. It just does. Sorry. You can't do it all yourself. I know it's hard to believe, but you can't be brewing, running the business, and slinging the beers. You're probably going to need some employees. And good employees are clutch to keeping your vision and your passion getting pushed to the customers so they know exactly what they're getting when they come in and why they should come in. If you're looking to get an assistant brewer or a part-time employee, you're looking probably around $14 an hour, around $30,000 a year. So you got to consider that in your budget. And if you got to get a brewmaster in, because maybe you're not the big time brewer, you're going to be looking probably close to at least $50,000 a year at $19 an hour, which isn't crazy. It's going to be more depending on where you live, but that's a big cost to have to consider in your whole grand scheme of what you got to make each year. Keep that in mind. Maybe you got to go to brewing school. What about marketing costs? The good old catch-22. Everybody hates marketing. Why? Because there isn't a direct ROI out of it. And I know that sucks, and you don't want to have to spend it but it matters. If you've got a brewery open and it's not bringing in customers, it's just a really expensive hobby. So to get going, you want to have a good brand, you want to have a good logo, you want to be recognizable. That's going to cost you anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000 before you even open, because you got to get menus in, you got to get merch designed. All of that stuff takes time, and finding all of the proper gear that you want to have in your brewery. And then on top of it, you're going to need ongoing marketing costs, which you can easily expect to budget $5,000 to $10,000 a year, or 1% to 2% of your entire revenue coming in. Which isn't that bad. I think people get really fixated on the ROI on it. If you really think of 1% to 2%, if your marketing's so bad you don't think it's bringing in 1% to 2%, you should probably get a new marketing person. But it should be fairly easy to see 1% to 2% coming in from the quality of marketing. So good luck. There's a lot of great people to get hired out there, and have fun with it. That's the biggest thing. Have fun and stick to your brand with it. It's a great time.
What I really like about this Sips of Wisdom, like I said at the beginning, like I love getting into the economic discussion of things. I'm not saying that I am necessarily good at it, but I enjoy the conversation, and I appreciate a fun fact here or there that I can stick in my old pocketbook and maybe use if I'm looking to strike up a conversation at my favorite brewery, or maybe thinking about starting my own brewery or brewing, and what's the actual feasibility of getting that done.
Yeah.
But we'll save a little bit of that for our top 10, but go ahead.
I also think it rolls into really any investment in any kind of opportunity that you're looking to get going.
For
It doesn't
sure.
have to just be a brewery,
Right.
And that's where this noodle has the most knowledge. So
Yeah.
Hopefully they were catchy, fun enough for you to remember. It is helpful because it was kind of fun actually, like remembering how much we know.
Man, I've also been,
or at least have opinions on.
Yeah, I mean, there's been there's been an experience that has occurred, so there's a relatability at least somewhere in my brain that goes, hey, I've experienced something like that before.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about. I've actually been purging a bit of like books and old journals and whatnot lately, and like I just came across, our Popular Adventure and going through investment in that, and like everything that it took and the preparation that occurs and creating a pitch deck and actually combing through your financials and then having a sound product and a product that has proven itself and then going and pitching that to someone is a whole thing, right? You gotta have your shit in line.
Get your shit together. Get it all together and put it in a backpack. All your shit, so it's together. Get your shit together.
Or you get a lot of, you're nice, but you're too early. Or whatever it may be, right?
Like a lot of earlies.
And that's all right, right? Like, had a lot of fun doing it. Had a lot of fun doing it with you. And yeah, definitely learned a lot. Again, have an opinion about it, which is cool. Let's move on to something a little bit more exciting, and it's drinking and eating. So this is our Brews and Bites. Now, this one is really just a play on words. We want you to invest in the flavors of something that I was craving. It's all about this rice lager sitting in front of me, and I really wanted some sushi. I was looking for some low-cal, high-protein, lots of flavor. I'm not going to feel guilty about it later, and I'm going to be really energized by it because it has lots of good fats, omegas, energy, protein. Because we're going to go to volleyball.
Got to be checked up for volleyball.
We hope you have fun with Brews and Bites. Hey everybody, I'm Liz and welcome to this week's Brews and Bites, where we are doing sushi with the Japanese rice lager from Upslope Brewing Co. in Boulder, Colorado. This particular sushi pairing is right out of your favorite grocery store. If they have a sushi section, I definitely recommend. I'm a California girl myself. It's easy, it's crab, it's cucumber, it's ginger, it's soy if you're into it. We've got a regular California roll, we've got a spicy California roll, and we've got a crunchy California roll. We're hitting all those favorite flavors, so let's jump into it.
Dive in or swim into it. Pinch into it.
Let's pinch it off. No.
Get it. Sushi. Pour that beer.
This is our beautiful rice lager. Contessa hops, flaked rice, malt, water, yeast from Upslope. Look at that beautiful golden to straw color. Nice and lagerific. Not too malty on the nose. Very light, really refreshing. Can't wait to get into it. Some things we're really expecting. I think it's going to be this fun tango of a dance. I think the complementary and contrasting flavors are really going to battle it out because I think so much of it is complementary and contrasting. And let's not forget cutting at the same time. We're looking for really the sweet light malt to really complement the cucumber and the avocado. And then we're looking for those big contrasting flavors with the crab and the crispness of the lager. And then all of a sudden that cut's going to come along and it's all just going to wash away. So it's actually going to be probably over in seconds. All these things are going to happen all at once, everything firing on all cylinders. So can't wait for that. And then of course, ginger to reset everything. Try it again because that's what you do with sushi. And of course, the salt and umami bits that really come forward in the soy sauce are just going to flavor explode everything that this rice lager has to offer with sushi. I'm definitely a drinker more than an eater, so you'll often find me starting with a drink and then taking a bite. You're welcome to do it either way. Boldness of flavors are going to come out differently depending on which way you start. I'm going to start with the regular California roll to get going. Got that crab effect. I'm going to get a little salt going in. I'm craving a little salt today, so that umami flavor from the soy. Everything's really happening at once, kind of like we expected. It's complementing, it's contrasting, and it's kind of cutting at the same time. And washing it down so beautifully. It makes me want to take another bite instantly. It was a really big bite. I feel like I instantly lost it. I'm looking forward to the spice. I think that's going to send it to a whole new level. What's nice about a nice crisp rice lager with sushi is it's rice on rice, and it's really easy to just keep going back for more. I'm gonna get in with a little bit of ginger, see what that does. Spicing things up. How will it do with the malt? Well, actually, it just brings out the hops more for me. It almost takes away that malt completely, probably because it's such a tangy sour taste as opposed to sweet. So I'm not gonna dip this one in any soy because I love mayonnaise, I love spice, and this is like sriracha sauce and mayonnaise on top of a California roll. I'm not sure you could go wrong. So it makes it a lot more creamy, of course. You're not getting as much as the crab flavors, but the spices coming through. And kind of some of that lingering lager flavor in my mouth is already dancing. The hops and the rice really pop with the rice. The spice kind of goes away right away, but I assume that's often the play of mayonnaise. It really just flushes it out right away. it really is a palate refresh in and of itself. Like almost that dry finish, kind of just setting us back to normal. And then if you're using your nose, things are kind of circulating. Actually, I'm getting a lot more of that hoppy, flaky rice effect coming through the nose. I'm not smelling as much of the ginger anymore, I'll just say that. Excuse me. I also haven't had a beer in a couple days and it tastes really good. Shoot. All right, so and now for our crunchy, spicy California roll. You can see they threw in, I think they are like the fried onions, like French onions, that sort of deal. I'm gonna get a little more soy on there as well. Might as well make it juicy. Let's go. Big bite. I did want to say though, it was surprising that not a lot of the avocado came through for me. Here I just got it texturally, but I didn't get it on the other ones. Could be because it's a little bit older. I like all the salt that the fried onions on top with the soy does for it, which makes me want to go back for this beer even more, right? Salt and lagers, it's savory, delicious, it's crisp. Which often for me makes me want to eat faster because there's such instant gratification type of flavors, whereas before, with just the normal California roll, it's more, it lingers a little bit longer because of the, I guess more plain flavors, as opposed to these are more intense flavors. Bite, drink, bite, drink. That's it. Like, I do recommend this pairing. I think it's a great like lunch pairing or maybe like a Saturday afternoon. Again, lunch pairing. It's light, it's not gonna make you too full. The meal in itself is actually pretty healthy. And you get a lot of great like sweet, malty, crisp rice, flaky, coming out of the lager, and it's effervescent, right? You got all those bubbles washing it right down.
So I'm going a slightly different route than Liz. She went with the California roll, all three of them. They look great. I was really jealous of that crunchy one. We wanted to throw out something a little bit different at you. So I went with a vegetarian roll, actually. Sucker's got cucumber, carrot, all the good little sesame flakes on there. The soy is gonna help it pop a little bit. Honestly, because it doesn't have the mayo, it doesn't have the fish flavor, I'm thinking the beer is 100% gonna be the hero on this one. I'm not gonna have that spice. I'm gonna throw a ginger slice in with one of mine to kind of help add a little bit more flavor to it. But yeah, I think Liz nailed it with this as like a great lunch pairing without even trying it, right? You got a light lager. It's gonna go with a light, fresh meal and kind of kick you off going. You're gonna like wanna go walk the dogs after this meal on a Saturday afternoon. Anyways, let's jump in. If I can do that. Apparently I can't. Boop, boop, boop. Get my soy. All right, the ginger brings out that hoppy. The rice brings out the malty. I think on like the initial smell, with all the flavors going on, there's like this really powerful lager smell happening, which is great. And with the malts, I was actually really excited for it with the salt of the soy. Liz nailed it. Like it cuts it away really quick, helps wash it all down. It has been in the fridge for a couple days, so it was a little dry. So the extra liquid was nice for it. I mean, A-class. Like we often do like Kirin and stuff. Like I would choose this over a Kirin. I think it's a little bit brighter, a little bit lighter, especially for like a mid-afternoon date. Like this is just like a perfect light, bright pairing that, especially if you have the fish in there, you're just getting packed full of protein, a lot of bright flavors, and kind of carry on with your day. I mean, this beer is fantastic with it. So would recommend. 4.9%. Thanks, Upslope. I feel like generally Kirin and sushi is like my go-to.
Yeah.
So like light lagers and sushi 100% go together.
That's the way to go.
It's the bubbles cutting through the fat of the sushi, right? It's also a flavor that's not overpowering the delicacy of the fish and the flavors going on with the rice. So, I mean, it was a perfect pairing together, and to throw in like a rice lager, as you brought up before, it's just crisp, it's clean, it's light, it's refreshing.
Yeah.
The only thing I disliked is I kind of hate drinking bubbly drinks and eating rice because you just go.
Yeah! Blow fishing this up.
See, and I wasn't so much there, but I also like refrained. I feel like often sushi and chicken wings live on the same, walking steps down to whatever level of hell you're going to end up in. And I can eat about 20 to 30 pieces of sushi and chicken wings. I can put those away, but I did really good.
Yeah, kept yourself in check.
I kept myself to a 6-pack rather than a 20-pack.
Of beer or of sushi?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Which is a pretty big deal. And oftentimes when I'm eating sushi, I have that delicious Kirin or rice lager from my favorite craft brewery, and then immediately I'm like, I'd really like some red wine.
Red wine gets me with sushi.
Red wine and sushi is probably
dangerously perfect.
Well, so it's not so much as complimentary, right? Like, so now you're going into the world of everything is contrasting, and you're getting that fruity and fishy and sushi and soy, and it's so good. Where this is just like, this is like going into the chocolate factory, and they're in the bubbly elevator, and everything's just popping. That for me is what light lagers do for sushi. They just make every flavor pop, and then there's the red wine, and it's like we're just gonna contrast everything, and it's so like good. Fruit and soy and fruit and ginger, and it's really big flavors. And I have one more step down the level of hell.
Sake?
Oh, sorry, I forgot about appetizers.
I was like, sake makes me feel like shit.
And sake is always there. So for whatever,
but I shouldn't.
People, if we ever hang out and you're like, oh God, like I feel like you guys eat all these fun and wonderful foods, but often I don't see you go for the sushi. It's because you start with sake and a beer, so shot and a beer, and then you're drinking red wine, and then you're all the way down there. Maybe you're 20 pieces deep. I'm not sure, and you're like, I should have a whiskey.
You know what I need? A different kind of booze.
I need dessert, and I really want that vanilla bourbon smoky to just send me over the edge. And then I'm tipping my waitress like $100 just to get a smile.
This doesn't sound like this was my birthday at all. Exactly what happened on my birthday. I threw up. Liz cut her arm, passed out on her bed. I barfed in a sink. I did not go for the whiskey though, but I did whiskey shots before. Anyways, doesn't matter.
That's my problem. But I do look forward to visiting the Asias someday.
Some point.
But I have a feeling I'm not going to remember a lot.
Party.
So many big, wonderful flavors. I love
incredible.
Japanese cuisine, sushi.
So good. Good.
All right. Thank you for staying tuned in for our tangent there, because there's a lot of fun bits in there. Maybe you're like, I didn't think to transfer from a shot and a beer to red wine. Now you do, and you're welcome.
And now you can feel like crap tomorrow too.
Sake is the worst hangover. Well, and wine is a terrible hangover.
Sake gets me way more than wine. But
I can feel the cotton mouth just thinking about red wine right now.
Sake. I can feel the headache from just thinking about sake.
Maybe that's just because I drank 4 pots of coffee today and I'm still tired.
And dehydrated.
That's why I'm having a rice lager.
I wish that was better. I'm really thirsty.
Yeah. If you enjoyed any little bit about what you saw here today in the Brews and Bites, talking about using your senses to pair with your foods, complementing, contrasting, and cutting your flavors, and oftentimes seasonal qualities, check out the book by yours truly, Moi, Beer Pairing Basics. As we stated, holidays are coming up. Super easy to read. Simple little book that can get you going on your beer and food pairing adventure.
Woo!
Woo. Chelsea's the woo girl.
Woo! Now jump into the final segment. It's a top 10 list. Plot twist.
That's what we do. It's our G-dang list.
It's top 10 list. And these are going to be tips for brewery owners, or if you're looking to own a brewery.
Yeah.
They go either way. The brewery owner tips. We've compiled real-world advice from local brewery owners who know the ins and outs of making breweries work. And you know what? We listen when people know more than we do, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get that hankering or that passion. You got to do whatever you want. But these are some top 10 lists that we've compiled.
Bada bing, bada boom, ba.
Number 10, always plan for the long game. Brewing is a marathon, not a sprint. Remember to budget for unexpected expenses, stay patient, and keep your eye on the long-term goals.
There you go. Good advice.
I think that's just good life advice, to be honest.
So number 9, engage with the community. We don't ever talk about this.
Community.
Involve the local community in your brewery's growth. Partner with nearby businesses. Host events. Consider donating. A loyal local customer base is going to keep you in for that marathon. The new people keep you revved and going, but your regulars are what keep you going for that marathon.
Exactly. Lifetime value of the customer, I believe, is what they call it in the economic world. Number 8, build a team you trust. It's very important to trust the person standing next to you, in front of you, and most importantly, the person that's running your books. Watch out for those guys. Sure. So your team truly is your most valuable asset, right? Like, defense wins championships. Hire people you're passionate about beer. They're passionate about your mission, your values, and it really does just create that supportive culture in your environment.
That would be the big piece I would emphasize on that is you don't want someone that's just there for a paycheck. I get that happens, but you want people in front of your line that are pumped about your business. Yep. They care about it. They're passionate about it. They want it to succeed because the customer feeds off that. The customer knows it. And I have, every time I have worked at a brewery that I really care about the brewery itself, customers know it. They show it. Yep. Customers come up all the time, talk to me about it. Talk about how it changes when other people come in and they just don't have that passion. It is very, very noticeable. So take that little extra time to get the person in that's really passionate. Yep. It's worth it. Really worth that investment. Number 7, adapt to market trends.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. A lot of industries have to do this. Basically, every industry has to do this if they want to keep surviving more than 3 to 5 years, right? Like, market trends change. People that jumped on the hazy trains, a lot of those are still doing well. NAs are the big trend right now. There's a lot of people doing it. There's a reason. Just stay aware of what's going on. Maybe try not to fight it. And lean into it. Embrace it a little bit and see where it takes you. Yeah. Never know. You might be really pumped where it takes you.
Knowing where you're going by knowing where you've been.
Away, we're on a course to find. Oh.
That's the way of a wayfinder. And that's just reading market trends. Number 6, focus on quality control, right? Product does matter. Consistency matters. If you're brewing shit, your product is shit. And that's not to say you don't make something good one-off, but control is very important. So consistency is key. Put measures in to ensure that every batch is up to standard, or it is what you say that it is. Sometimes breweries go so far as to set up labs and testing and maintaining cleanliness. We talked about toilets and tanks and taps. That's a big deal. Yep. It's definitely worth the investment right here. Like, invest time in making sure that stainless steel is looking shiny, because if it's looking ucky, I bet those beers are tasting a little ucky. Just saying.
An easy example with this.
And it costs money too.
Easy example with this. fast food chains, how stores are set up, national brand stores. There's a reason they're the same, is because people want the consistency. They want to be able to go to any McDonald's in the U.S. and their Big Mac tastes like a Big Mac no matter where they have. When they walk into a Walmart, they're not like, how the shit do I get around this Walmart? Everything is set up the same. Yeah. People like consistency.
And it also keeps you from being paralyzed by options, right? What do? We're often a deer in headlights when there's 20 freaking candy bars on the shelves. I just want caramel, nougat, and milk chocolate. Yeah. Which means I probably want a Milky Way. So give me a Milky Way.
You're probably at the candy aisle because you're craving something.
Exactly.
You probably went out to eat because you're craving something.
Make it easy for me to give you my money.
Yeah.
That's probably the best advice.
Yeah. Like I like trying new things, but I also understand, like, again, if you decide to go out for a beer, it's probably because you're craving a beer. If you want some food, if you go to a burger place because you're craving a burger. And you don't want to be disappointed by it. So people go back to the same thing they know and love.
Exactly.
That just is what it is.
It is what it is.
Number 5, diversify revenue streams. This is just great advice for any business. And doesn't have to just be the brewing space, but explore different revenue options, merchandise, special events, food pairing, mud clubs. All these things just help add financial stability. Make it fun. Make it unique. Do bottles. Do crazy stuff that people do like to pay for because they want to feel special. And exactly. Keep it rolling. Have fun with it.
Have a good time. Number 4, build a strong brand identity. What do we do when we open up every interview? We talk about the origin story. We talk about the ethos, why things are the way that they are. That's your brand. That's how you market. Yeah. I'm Liz Hess. I'm a little monotone. I'm a little dark humored. You're going to get that every single time. That's not just my brand. That's who I am, right? And that's what you need to do if you're starting or if you're already there. Get a freaking story out there. I don't care if you make it up, but you stick with it when you make it up.
It's easier if it's just kind of naturally you that feels less like you have to make it up. So.
It's less effort, I'll tell you that much. Yeah. But still, like Ronald McDonald came from somewhere, you know? I don't think it was just a John Wayne Gacy thing. Oh,
especially when I'm like, kids.
Oh, sorry. Oh, God.
They're trying to get kids to eat burgers. Gosh, Elizabeth.
Keep up with the time.
Keep up with marketing. Number 3, know your target market. Cody talks great about this, right? He literally brews beers for his audience.
Oh my gosh.
He's not trying to brew beers for everybody.
No.
Our last interview with the Empourium, same thing. They're like, people came in looking for big beers and they're very sessionable focused and they left. And just like, well, whatever. We're not going to start brewing those big beers. It's not us. It's not what we want to do. We're sticking true to ourselves. Yeah. And the people that come in here now know that, want that. And so they're being true to their target market.
Absolutely. Which is often true to brand. Yeah. Imagine that. Weird. Number 2, invest in quality ingredients. Again, if you're using duct tape and bubble gum to make a lager, you're somewhere off there. So don't cut corners on ingredients just because you can get, everything in a bulk price. I mean, it may have been sitting in a silo for way too long and you're getting some crazy off flavors because of it. Yeah. If you budget correctly and spend sometimes a little more, but sometimes appropriate, you're going to get quality ingredients. And that's really important to do, especially when it comes to taste differences.
Yeah.
So there is that.
And number 1, start small and grow smart, guys. Begin with a manageable setup and focus on product line. Many brewery owners recommend testing your concept before investing heavily in large-scale equipment or multiple beer styles. Get good at what you're good at and then start experimenting, right? Yeah. Get people in the doors, know what you're good at.
Yeah.
And
that's the MVP.
Yep.
Minimum viable product.
Be okay with that. Also, like, your MVP, like your most viable player.
Exactly.
And like, you also don't want to, I know when people are like, oh, you're super busy, that's a good problem, but that actually can be really hurtful as well.
Yeah.
Grow at the speed that you can. Don't try to be someone you're not, and just embrace where you're at. And if you want to get bigger, then start working on goals to get bigger. But embrace where you're at. Enjoy that shit.
Absolutely.
Enjoy it. More money, more problems, bitches.
That's what they say.
All right. So top 10 done. I think there's some good advice.
I think there's lots of good tidbits. And for those that are listening that may not be that as much into beer, I think if you're looking to do any sort of startup, you can find some quality advice in this. The this is wisdom passed down from us, from mentors and advisors and close friends and coworkers.
Running our own businesses.
Running our own businesses. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've been living the dreams for the better part of a decade because we got some really good advice and we worked really, really hard and we thought about these things, right? So we get to stand here and talk to you beautiful, wonderful people because of it. So that's pretty cool.
Well, thanks everyone that helped us.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
We do appreciate you all. All right. Well,
that's our episode.
That's what we got. Hopefully,
economics and beer.
Hopefully, our monotone was perfectly on brand.
Only like a couple dark humor jokes.
The topic at hand. We kind of decided we didn't want to be too bubbly because it didn't really make sense for it. So it was fine for Liz. I had to reel it back in a bit.
That is so not true.
I'm gonna talk about numbers.
Yeah. Numbers are like my secret favorite thing. Like I do love a good spreadsheet. I think it's that data play that you were talking about. Like sometimes it's hard to come in from that shift of looking at data. I do sometimes love the data. I just don't necessarily prioritize time for the data. So we have a love-hate relationship. But yeah,
gotta be in the mood for it.
As she said, that is the show, economics and beer, as they go hand in hand, as every business do.
Yep. If you guys enjoy our lovely edits, then you should reach out to our lovely Sam. You could be a brewery looking to get some additional revenue stream. He's got you covered for spelling bees, trivias, all sorts of good fun events, and he's a funny guy. If you're looking for video editing, he's still a funny guy, and you can hire him for that too. All of that information's right here. Hit him up. He's got you covered for damn near everything.
That's right. Check out Shut Up and Drink Trivia and Short Chop Productions. Thanks,
calling
Sam.
him Damn Near Sam.
Oh,
it's catchy.
Damn Near Sam.
I feel like it's like a cowboy name. Damn Near Sam.
Yosemite Sam. It's Yosemite Sam. Yosemite Sam. Yosemite. Yeah, Yosemite Sam. The roughest, toughest He-Man, stuffest hombre has ever crossed the Rio Grande.
So there you go, guys. Enjoy. Hope you have a lovely, lovely time. Survive our huge blizzard that doesn't really look like it's doing much if you're in Colorado. Otherwise, we'll be seeing you in 2 weeks. Got a bing, bada boom.
Au revoir.
I'm just like,
yeah.
That's fine.
Chelsea.
Yes, Elizabeth.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
They see me.
They see me who?
They see me rolling. They hating.
Let's start
Wrexham.
Wrexham.
Damn near killed him.
Let's start that a little bit over.
Oh man, I didn't know it was that kind of funny. That's funny.
Cut all this. I don't even know why we're talking about this.
That's funny.
All right, let's get to bed.